Welcome to another Habs Bites. Was Corey Perry to be named captain? Habs hire MariePhilip Poulin. Chicago Blackhawks asked to speak to Luke Richardson for their head coach position. Habs in limbo with Carey Price's situation. Nick and Cole comment on Slavkovsky. Penn's interested in Petry. Can't be shy to trade Anderson. Burrows reveals the pick. And Bouillon reveals Gouli as Habs' best prospect. Hey, everybody, I'm Rick. Welcome to Talking Habs, where you get your daily fix of Bleu Blanc Rouge. All right, so I've got a bunch of stories that have been written by other writers that are out in all the various magazines that are online. And I'm just going to make comments on the story itself. So I'm going to show some of what was written, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. And that's going to start right now with the first story, that is Canadiens. Corey Perry was to be named captain. And I think, a lot of I didn't really think of him that way, but he did wear the A for a little while. But I think a lot of people thought that prior, obviously, to the story, or prior to him signing with Tampa. So here's the story was put out there by Martin Leclerc of Radio Canada Sports. And it basically just says that after the season that Corey Perry had here, the first season, the only one, he was held in very high regard by Coach Dom, by Marc Bergevin, and in the locker room by all the players. And, I think by all the fans, pretty much. Going in, was not a Corey Perry fan. By the end of the season, I was a big Corey Perry fan. So I think he was held in high regard by everybody. It seems, however, that once the summer was concluded, Perry's agent did, in fact, sit down with Marc Bergevin and discuss a contract extension with Montreal Canadiens. That's when the beans were apparently spilled. Shea Weber had already known that his career was all but over, and the Canadiens had to make a decision regarding a captain. That's when Dom Ducharme also came in and said he wanted Corey Perry to be the next captain until one of the younger players was groomed and ready to take over. There's a big hint on if anyone wondering, because there's a controversy. I say Nick Suzuki will be the next captain. Other people are naming more veteran players. I think that's a big hint. It's not going to be a veteran player. We all know what the end result ended up being. Perry signed a 2-year contract with Tampa Bay, and he's actually playing still. Now, to prove my point on the Nick Suzuki, at the end of this article, everything still points towards Nick Suzuki being named the next captain before the beginning of 2022-23 season. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think Corey Perry didn't want to stay. It was either that he didn't think that if he only signed a 1-year deal, Montreal was only offering apparently a 1-year deal, same kind of money he got in Tampa, but for 2 seasons. And he either really wanted 2 more seasons and didn't believe that if he didn't sign for that now he wouldn't get it, or he wanted to go to Tampa. I think for his family, based on the restrictions that were here at the time, I think that he didn't. I think he really wanted to go to Tampa, personally. I'm not saying he didn't like Montreal or anything like that, but it's not a surprise that Bergevin and Dom Ducharme would think that way. Very veteran player. I mean, the guy has done everything. He was a winner, Stanley Cup champion, all that. Players looked up to him, especially the young kids, Caufield and Suzuki. And, yeah, I could see him being named captain. Definitely. Anyway, we'll get to the next story. Montreal Canadiens made a really good hire on the developmental side just the other day when they hired MariePhilip Poulin, who, in my opinion, is the best female hockey player right now in the world. MariePhilip Poulin, great hire on the developmental side. She's going to work with the young guys. So this is from basically 2 stories. It says here, Canadiens continue to invest in player development with Poulin hire. This is the announcement from Kent Hughes. We are thrilled with the addition of MariePhilip Poulin to our hockey development department. MariePhilip is one of the best players on the planet. And you notice he didn't say women. And she has won at the highest level, which will be very beneficial for our players. Her knowledge, leadership, and vision of the game certainly make the Canadiens a better organization. She's the best. If you're going to move in the direction where, obviously there's women coming into the NHL in various forms in management, coaching, development, upper management, everything. If you're going to go and start doing that, get the best. She's the best. She got such skills, the way she thinks the game. She's going to pass this on to young guys and work with them. I think it's a great opportunity for her, and I think it's fantastic that Montreal went in this direction. This is from one of the stories. Today, they continued to stockpile assets in the organization when they hired MariePhilip Poulin. She is the best female hockey player on the planet today and perhaps the best ever to lace up skates. 31-year-old is still representing her country, so she's still competitive, and it probably till the next Olympics, Winter Olympics. So it'll be more of a part-time thing for now. And maybe, another gold medal could be in the next Olympics. So she's still only 31, so she's not retiring from that. For now, she'll work as a player development consultant. Canadiens general manager Kent Hughes commented that adding somebody who is the best in the world at their craft will certainly be beneficial for the players in the Canadiens organization. Her main task with the Habs will be joining players on the ice and in the video room to work on individual skills. She will work alongside Rob Ramage, who is the director of player development, and Adam Nicholas, the newly hired Adam Nicholas, who's the director of hockey development. So basically, they're going. We didn't have a hockey development team at all. This is part of that, right? They're going in that direction. They're going to develop these kids properly from now on, from the AHL and in the NHL. It's not just going to be development down in the AHL. It's going to continue here for some players. It's going to start here, and their whole career they'll be developing here. It's going to be great, and I think this was a really great hire. Teams have begun hiring coaches that don't just teach tactics and systems, but actually help players with specific aspects of the on-ice game, like working on their edges and puck control in confined areas. I mean, that's self-explanatory. Poulin will be called upon to join the players on the ice and in video sessions to work on their individual and collective skills. The 31-year-old Poulin has one of the most decorated careers in hockey at the moment, sporting 15 medals for Canada at international tournaments, 4 of which were at the Olympics. One of the most clutch players of all time. She is clutch, scoring important goals to win championships and gold medals. She's as clutch as they come. And I wonder if that's something that she can teach, and I imagine on the mental side of it, it is. Her winning reputation and understanding of the game will be great value to the Canadiens as they look to continue building a winning culture within the organization for years to come. And yes, this is part of that. Moving forward, this is going to be it's not your uncle's or your grandfather's Habs team. They're modernizing, going in the modern direction of how to develop players in coaching with Marty St. Louis, and just they're going in that direction, and we're going to love it for the next, I don't know how many years, but hopefully a lot to come. So this was a great hire, MariePhilip Poulin, and congrats to her and to the Montreal Canadiens for doing that. And it's a big move, and I love it personally. Next story that we're going to talk about is Canadiens. Blackhawks seek permission to speak to Richardson. That's Coach Luke Richardson. And this is based on a couple of stories here. Chicago Blackhawks rumored to be speaking to coaching candidates. You see the picture. They're showing Luke Richardson. So here's the beginning of that other story. The rumors between Chicago Blackhawks and Montreal Canadiens are persistent, but this time involves a coach. As first reported by Frank Saravalli. So, it's not just made up. And confirmed by yours truly, with Mr. Ego, the writer. The Chicago Blackhawks have reportedly have asked permission to speak to assistant coach Luke Richardson And that didn't come out of me very well. Luke Richardson regarding the head coaching job in the Windy City. They're also Brad Shaw, Derek King. Those are also other candidates. So now this was from a few days ago. I don't know if they've spoken to him yet or not. One thing is Montreal they very rarely, if ever, have stood in the way of a coach getting an opportunity. Now, here's a reason why they wouldn't here either. If you look here in the red, he doesn't speak French well enough, right? It's unlikely he could be the head coaching get the head coaching job here in Montreal if he was bilingual. And Denis Savard, you know what I keep saying, Marty St. Louis and Denis Savard. I don't know why. Marty St. Louis, I believe, will be here for a long time. I don't see an opportunity anymore. If there was one for Richardson, he did fill in the playoffs last year when Dom Ducharme got COVID. Did a good job. I think he could be a good coach elsewhere because he can't get a job here. I'm not sure if I want to blame him too much for last year. The power play sucked, and it was the defense. I mean, the penalty kill wasn't great. Defense was bad. Do I blame him for that completely, or it's an overall thing that happened? I think he'll get a coaching job, a head coaching job somewhere. It might be here in Chicago. So, losing him would be a blow to the organization, as many would be quick to point out that he has grown a rapid professional and personal relationship with Marty St. Louis. And that is true because they played together in Tampa. Luke Richardson and Marty St. Louis were teammates briefly, I think, but they did play together. So they do have that relationship. But goes on to say, however, the Canadiens have rarely held a staff member back in order to gain a promotion with another franchise, and I don't think they'll do that here. You can replace an assistant coach, and they were saying they might be adding somebody anyway, so now they're probably looking at 2 assistant coaches. This is what Marty St. Louis has to say. Luke is just a calm and calculated and very confident coach, St. Louis said this season. The calmness of his approach allows the guys to grow, and Luke's approach always allows the guys to feel confident on the ice, receptive to constructive criticism because the way he does it. It's very important they don't feel suffocated if there's correction. They don't feel handcuffed if there's correction, and I think that's important in their growth. So, sounds to me that's a lot of the way Marty St. Louis coaches, from what I've gleaned from the stuff I read. It sounds to me like he's a player's type of coach, doesn't put a lot of pressure, and good team, modern kind of coaching. It's modern kind of coaching. Teams are going that way. There was a part of the article that was saying that it kind of shows that Chicago's trying to go into the modern direction, like Montreal did with Marty St. Louis. So it's not a surprise. Luke Richardson is a highly regarded coach, and not a surprise that a team would come calling for him. Like I said, don't know if he interviewed yet. And if he obviously they haven't announced that he got the job. So look for that. It's possible we're going to lose Luke Richardson to the Chicago Blackhawks or maybe another team over the summer. You never know. That's it. Off to the next one. Montreal Canadiens off-season in limbo until Carey Price status determined. And this is, obviously, because it's a lot of money tied up into Carey Price. If he's not going to play or he's going to play, they got to know whether they might need another goalie, how to manage the salary cap, all that kind of stuff. Listen, if Price can't start the season, but is going to be there in the middle of the year, it's hard to use his money. They got to know what they have to do, right? And we know they're in salary cap hell. A full year after the 2021 Stanley Cup final, we still don't know how the injury Price is dealing with, or was dealing with at the time, will allow him to play next season. And Price himself said if it's not getting any better than this when he played the 5 games at the end of last season, it's not a sustainable thing to think that he could play 50 or more games. It might not even be sustainable thinking he can play 25 or 30 games. So it's really important. They need to know this. And Kent Hughes did say that, Price, he knows, has his timeline and has to stick to that. And their timeline is a little different, and he hopes they mesh, and they might not. And Price himself has said it might be his last game, and he might have to retire. Look at Ben Bishop. Had the same thing, struggling to come back for 2 years. I think Buffalo just traded for him, but I think that's more to reach the floor for the cap. That for that reason, Price is in a very same position, and my prediction is he doesn't start the season anyway. There's been a little update since then, the end of the season. Or when he had a press conference, as the only public comments about Price's status are that there is no answer yet to whether or not he can play. Price doesn't know whether he can play. The Habs don't know whether he can play. Doctors don't know whether he can play. He's trying to avoid having surgery by taking the injections into the knee and the area that's giving him the problem, and that'll hopefully keep him from maybe having to have the operation, and also to avoid pain and taking pain meds, which we know was a problem for him. If Price announced he is retiring, the team has little option but to embrace another rebuilding season. It might be for the best going forward, since this team might not be able to compete even with a healthy Price in the lineup right now, and that's how I see it. I don't think Carey Price being in the lineup, especially the way he is right now and trying to come back and recover, I don't see how that makes Montreal a playoff contender as opposed to him not being there. I think there's still going to be a team that struggles, and it's no need to put him in there to injure himself worse or anything like that, or to think that, like I said, that he's going to be the salvation for this team and drag us all the way to the playoffs in a cup. Not going to happen. If Price's status is still not updated in a month, and this is written a bit ago, so that's like a month away from the draft, right, when they wrote that, the Habs have no choice but to assume he won't be able to help much, if at all, in the 2022-23 season, and prepare for another rebuilding season. I would have to think personally that that's where they are at as far as they're thinking for next season for goaltending. I don't think they're counting on Price being there at all. I don't think he'll be there at the beginning of the season, and I have a feeling it's going to be something similar to last season where, we might get 5-10 games that he can play if it goes well through the season, and then he comes out without pain, not the way he was last season. I think if that's the case, I think he retires. I really do. So kind of at a crossroads here for Price, and it's hard to know which way it's going to go. So didn't really need to go too much into that story, because to me it's just obvious. Until you know what's going on with Price, it's going to be a little bit harder for the team to make some decisions in the offseason, and it might be a reason why maybe not as much happens in the offseason as we might think. All right, off to the next one. All right, this one's going to be quick, because this one is Alex Burrows seems to slip and reveals a big piece of information regarding the Habs' first pick. That storyline or headline is really misleading. I watched a little bit of Uri Slafkovsky at the World Championships. This is from Burrows, but I didn't look at it in as much detail as our scouts did. I also watched a little bit of Shane Wright in the OHL series and did the same with Logan Cooley. It looks like it will be one of these three players. That's the key line right there. I guess they seem to be on every scout's list. Regardless, it's going to be a great player that we draft, and I look forward to working with in September. So basically, he's just saying it's going to be one of Wright, Cooley, or Slafkovsky. Duh. I mean, you could say it might confirm a little bit that they're not looking to go off and reach for somebody, or somebody we would consider a reach. It's probably unlikely, which I believe it's going to be Shane Wright. But saying that it's going to be one of these three guys, that's not really revealing the pick like that headline says. Just stupid, but I mean, it's like, duh, it's going to be one of those three guys. So now we know it's going to be one of those three guys. Shane Wright, Logan Cooley, or Uri Slafkovsky. It's going to be Shane Wright. Off to the next one. Former Montreal Canadiens defenseman Frankie Poulin, who is now a development coach, I do believe, reveals the identity of the Canadiens' best and most surprising prospect. I don't think it's surprising for me anyway. So he's talking about Caden Gooley, actually. The man who is a former Habs defenseman and now Montreal's player development coach, Frankie Poulin, was a guest on a radio show. He was asked about some very interesting issues, including the identity of the CHs. That's the Habs' top prospect and most surprising prospect. Oh, I guess that's what they meant by surprising prospect. I have that at the end. As for the organization's number one prospect, he has no doubt. Neither do I. Well, I think there's different names you can come up with, but I think right now, going into the offseason, this is the guy. So the Montreal Canadiens player development coach believes that defenseman Caden Gooley is the organization's top prospect. Caden Gooley is incredible, says Bouillon. He goes on to admit that he was downright gobsmacked by Gooley's remarkable performance in the recent WHL playoffs, where Gooley was named the WHL playoffs MVP. So he's the playoff MVP for the WHL. Think about that, right? Regular season, great player and all that. And going into the playoffs, everybody lifts their games. And he did as well and finished at the top. So it's what you want to see in your prospects. Gooley, 20, who's 20 now, drafted 16th overall in 2020, had 15 points in 18 games in the playoffs this year. Beyond the numbers, he is simply dominant. Gooley is Shea Weber physically. I don't think he's got Weber's offense. I think physically he's gonna remind us a lot of Shea Weber. He's going to be a first pair defenseman here. I believe that. And I also believe, I don't know if it's a hot take or not, I believe Caden Gooley, I keep calling him Shea, Caden Gooley is going to start the season. I believe he'll start the season in Montreal. And I really do think he'll be good enough to stay the whole year. I think Caden Gooley is going to be just a dominant defenseman on our blue line for many years to come. So here's a little bit more about what he said. This was translated from French, so if anybody's wondering. I was in Edmonton 2-3 weeks ago and was talking with my counterpart, Rob Ramage. Caden is incredible. The way he plays, he's a very responsible player. He's serious about his defensive game. Offensively, he is a very complete player. He hasn't changed his game in the playoffs, yet he stepped up. He is very steady, very responsible. So for me, I would say he's the one that has stood out the most. I think different scouts and whatever, they're going to say maybe somebody different. Not everyone's going to be a Caden Gooley guy, but I think Caden Gooley, if not the number one prospect, is right in that group of the top prospects here for the Habs. Now, as far as that surprising prospect, I've mentioned him before because I think he is going to make the team. Physically dominant, brutal, mean even defenseman, something that Montreal's lacked for a long time, really, this kind of defenseman. And that is Arbor Mikai. It's hard to pronounce his last name. Arbor. That's what I call him. That's his name. Easy to know who's named Arbor other than him. He was never drafted, but he did sign his ELC with the Habs. He is playing really well in Hamilton, I believe. He is going to be – we're going to like him here. He's going to be that player that, we always talk about. Yeah, you love him when he's on your team. You hate him when he's not. We're going to have him on our team, so we're going to love him. So that's that's that. So on to the next one. So this next one is kind of based on two stories. Suzuki and Caufield wouldn't say no to Slavkovsky. Uri Slavkovsky sends a message to the CH and tells a funny story about Cole Caufield. So Nick and Cole, I guess, were asked at separate times about the possibility of the Habs acquiring Shane Wright or Uri Slavkovsky. And I wouldn't expect them to say something bad about either of those guys or anybody that they're asked about, honestly. I don't expect they would say anything negative anyway. But This is what I think Suzuki said this. He looks like a good player to me. He would adjust perfectly to playing with Cole and me. We'll see. I don't know how he knows that exactly, but I mean, they don't know him, so I don't know how they know he'd adjust. But I mean, you got to figure they're hockey players. That's what they're saying. We'll work with whoever. I'm sure he'll do fine here, that kind of stuff. Right? I mean, that's what I'm reading into it. Caufield thinks Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and himself could get along like thieves on the ice. And listen, I don't disagree with that because I've said that already. When I was talking very highly of Slafkovsky before, I didn't know his kind of problem with really good teams. That might be a thing and might not be. So, but I've always been high on Slafkovsky, and he's the right kind of player for that line, right? He's big, talented, fast, just the goal scorer. Like he'll fit that line really well and give that size to the line because Suzuki, Caufield, obviously small. They're on the small side, so it would really be a good balance and shouldn't be taking away from any of the talent level on that line as well. So this idea, which has not really been started by Slafkovsky himself, because everybody was talking about it. But it says here the idea had been launched by the Slovak himself in an interview with colleague Guillaume Lafrancois in Buffalo 2 weeks ago. That would make a pretty crazy trio, a pretty sick line, he suggested. It would be great. Caufield replies with a smile when asked about the hopeful's proposal. I know he's a great player. I like playing with Nick too. So it's not a bad idea. I don't think it'd be horrible to have Slafkovsky lining up there. I just think Wright brings you more depth to the lineup and stuff like that. Slafkovsky has rightly spoken out about the possibility of completing a trio with Caufield and Suzuki, as some have suggested. I've also seen, this is Slafkovsky, I've also seen people disagree. That's okay. That's right. Montreal, you don't always get unanimous approval, but it would make a pretty crazy trio with Caufield and Suzuki. I think I'm the biggest of the three. They need someone bigger to get the pucks, and they're really skilled players. It would be a good combination. That was Slafkovsky, obviously. And, as I just said, that aspect would be great. When Suzuki was asked if he has a preference between the two players, that's Slafkovsky or Wright, Suzuki said, I don't, he smiled apparently and he said, I don't make those decisions. And that's a good answer. He says also, we will be happy no matter who is chosen. And, that's not even him being politically correct. They will be happy with whoever is chosen. They're there to play with who they're lined up with. As they don't know they're not going to judge him the same way we might judge Slafkovsky on those games that he didn't have great games against Canada, Finland, like that. I don't think they're going to judge him that way as players necessarily. So, yeah, they're happy to whoever Montreal takes, they're going to play with him, and they're going to be happy about it. So, now, this is the funny story. Apparently, I don't know how funny it is about Cole Caufield and Slafkovsky. So, Slafkovsky told an interesting story, an anecdote from the 2021 World Junior Hockey Championship. During a duel between Team USA and Slovakia, we were losing like 4-1. We came face-to-face for a face-off in the neutral zone. He said something to me like, you could be a good player, you. Is that interesting or fun? I don't know. Slafkovsky later admitted he was surprised to find that Caufield knew him and knew who he was. All right. So for me, yeah, the guys, Nick and Cole, of course, they'd be excited to play with Slafkovsky. They'll be excited to play with Wright. If Logan Cooley or Cutter Gauthier or any name I can't think of right now, they're going to be just as excited, I think, So, I don't know. Make of it what you want. But anyways, off to the next one. Penguins got their eyes on Jeff Petry. So apparently, the Pittsburgh Penguins, I don't know if it's apparently, I think I've said this before earlier in the year, that the Canadiens or the Penguins are interested in Jeff Petry. So that's gaining, I guess, a little bit more legs now that the offseason is fast approaching it. I mean, it's here for almost all the teams except for two, but Frank Saravalli of the Daily Faceoff stirred some more rumors and posted a trade bait article and listed Petry. In this list, he mentions that the Pittsburgh Penguins have been linked to the Canadiens and would be interested in the services of the defenseman should they be unable to come to a contract extension agreement with pending UFA Chris Letang. And Letang has been rumored to possibly be coming to Montreal, but for the money he's going to be looking for and the term, I doubt that. I also do think that in the end, Pittsburgh will re-sign Letang. I read a few things that looks like it could be possible, and I think that's going to be how it ends up being. We'll have to see. But if not, and they're not able to, definitely they'd be interested in a guy like Petry, who definitely fits a Chris Letang kind of profile and would probably slot in and fit in well over there in Pittsburgh. It won't take much for the Canadiens to accept a deal given his $6.25 million cap hit. It would likely only take a second or third round pick to move the defender and maybe a salary up front to even things out financially. In Pittsburgh, a bottom six forward like Teddy Bluger might make things work as he has 1 year left on his deal at $2.2 million cap hit. Granted, the Canadiens have a boatload of similar players, but it might be required to unload the heavy contract going the other way. And, Bluger, he can play in the bottom six. 1 year at $2.2 million. I'm sure Montreal can swing it in the overall picture. They'd be saving $4 million off the cap. This is what their goal is. And I could likely see something like that happening. Might not be Bluger. Maybe it'd be someone else. I mean, maybe the deal looks a little different. But Petry's going to move this offseason. And, I mean, Pittsburgh's a likely place. But they do have cap issues. As also worth noting is Petry's 15-team no-trade list, and it is unknown if Pittsburgh is part of said list. What I've got to think, though, I mean, who wouldn't want to really go play with Sidney Crosby, I guess? I would think, though, Petry would like an opportunity to win a cup. Maybe he wouldn't want to go there because I don't know that Pittsburgh's really got a serious opportunity to win a cup in the next, he's got 3 years left, Petry, so that could be an issue there. The bottom line is that the Canadiens are, in fact, a better team with Jeff Petry. This is true. But facing a rebuild, having a player on the wrong side of 30 making $6 million doesn't make any sense no matter how you look at it, and this is true. If they had the cap space, not an issue. They need veteran D. They need guys like that to mentor the young guys. But when you're really having cap issues, to have a guy Petry's age making that kind of money is not sensible anymore. And he needs to move. Even if he didn't want to go, he needs to go for that reason alone. They can bring back a lesser defenseman of a lot of experience, but guy makes a lot less money, still has the experience and can still help out that way. Look at Chris Weidman. They re-signed 2 years at next to nothing, league minimum, for reasons like this. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me. On to the last one. All right. Canadiens can't be shy to pull the trigger on Anderson trade. Now, the writer's Patrick Lordsey. With him, I agree with him sometimes. And sometimes I think he just wants to write for clickbait. And I think this is one of them. This to me, it's ridiculous. And nothing in the story can convince me that you should be trading Anderson, to be honest with you. And I think they're talking about the New Jersey second pick and all that. And even then, I still don't know that that's right, because you still have to give up more than Anderson to get that. And I don't know. I think he's going to be too valuable. Let's get into it. So this part is just to establish that that they're in a rebuild. The Habs are in a rebuild, and trying to establish that when you're in a rebuild, pretty much everybody should go. Which the Habs have themselves established they're not in that type of a rebuild. So that's not what they're doing. So right away, that doesn't jibe here. But let's plow on. When Josh Anderson was brought in, he was brought in with the idea that the Canadiens were competing now. Bergevin built a team he thought would be an annual Stanley Cup contender, and that Anderson would be an important piece to this puzzle. He was partially correct. Anderson did become an important piece, but everything around him came crumbling after Shea Weber and Carey Price saw their respective careers come to a halt. Still, nothing of that makes me think that, yeah, trade Anderson because, you thought something. Doesn't mean Anderson's not valuable going forward, even though the direction's changed, in my opinion. Anderson hasn't played any better or any worse than what he's done with the Blue Jackets. He doesn't score more. He doesn't score less, nor does he hit more or less. His defensive play is relatively the same, and he approaches the game and his teammates with the same amount of respect he always has. I guess. And still, what does that mean? So, sure, he didn't get any better getting to Montreal than he was on the Blue Jackets. Is that what he means? How does that change whether or not you should keep him? Again, I don't think it means anything. The one we've affectionately named Power Horse, as his girlfriend's I think that's where it comes from, is a great addition for any team, and his value is at his highest. The Canadiens are in a rebuild and shouldn't be shy of pulling the trigger on an irresistible trade involving Anderson, especially since we now have a chance to repair many past draft mistakes. Okay, I only agree with this in that, and it's been said, if a team knocks their socks off with a "you cannot turn this down" deal, I get it, but why? What team is so loaded that they can just give you this and that and this? You get a right wing, you get a center, you get a best of best. Like, who's going to do that? So it's not happening. And obviously, if someone does that, you take it. It's not happening. I wish actually you could see what I was doing while I was talking, and I didn't leave that up there. But hey, it's one of those days today. It just is. I've said this, and I think no, I haven't said this. He said this. I've said this. I don't agree with. I don't think in any way. I've said this more than once in the past. It's if sacrificing Power Horse, your 26th pick overall, that's two things: the rights to Logan Mailloux, another pick, and maybe even another prospect means you can draft Shane Wright and Juraj Slafkovsky back to back. Do it. Now, am I saying I don't want Shane Wright and Juraj Slafkovsky back to back? No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is not at that cost. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces for a draft pick. Slafkovsky could be a total bust. And you've given up 5 big pieces, and all those things are pretty much hopefully going to be important parts of the future. No, that's too much. Based on my information, this is what he goes on saying today, and it would be really surprising if Josh Anderson was traded. It's a long shot. Kent Hughes has had a couple of very interesting offers. Teams have been very aggressive in trying to acquire him, and the CH has always resisted and always said no. As from Frank Saravelli, well, of course. They haven't got an offer that's going to knock their socks off. Why? Because nobody's going to make that kind of an offer. Nobody's going to make that kind of an offer because there's not one team that is so loaded that they can give, that they can give up that much. What team could give up that much to get one possibility as a draft pick? Nobody. And this is not a generational player. This is not McDavid. This is not Connor Bedard. If you're talking about Connor Bedard, I got to go, well, maybe I'll think about it for sure. It's not. Anyway, my little rant is over. And that's it. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and leave a comment in the comment section down below. I appreciate that. Until next time, stay safe out there. Peace out, y'all. And thanks for watching this video. And I'll see you next time. And whatever else I say in the end. And hey, I think there's a video popping up there on this side there. Check that one out. Ciao, everybody.